Welcome to the Pack the House Show, where we have conversations about sharing your faith as you walk through life with others.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Pack the House. Glad to be back with you, especially in this holiday week. Hope your Memorial Day was really great. Excited today because we have Ben Scholer with us. Ben, go ahead and say hi so they can hear you.
Hi, I'm Ben Scholer. I'm a software developer. And
Awesome.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, well, there you go.
What else is like a cool fact to know about you?
Ooh, I have chickens. That's fun.
That's true. You do have chicken. I forgot about that.
There's a variety of different hobbies that I have. But
So
yeah.
in addition to husbanding chickens, the reason I'm excited to talk to Ben is because he's been doing something pretty cool lately. Ben's been hosting block parties, and it's been, I don't want to speak for you, but it's been a great opportunity, a great way to meet some neighbors. So Ben, you've actually hosted 2 block parties, right?
Yep. Second one was a couple weeks ago.
So tell us about both of those just briefly.
Sure. So I bought this house back in like July, I think, of last year. And I've always like enjoyed planning parties and hosting events and things like that and getting to know people. So this was when I figured out that I was going to buy a house, I started like trying to figure out like how I would orchestrate some kind of block party. And I'd been to some at my parents' house when I was younger, and I always had a great time, and it was cool just to meet a whole bunch of people who live so close. And so I started planning it, and that's kind of how it came to be.
Great, and that's what we want to talk through as we go. So just to set the table a little bit, the reason I'm excited, Ben, to talk to you about this, and for those listening, the reason I'm excited about this is that this is what we're going to see. We're using this word block party, which might sound like a real formal thing that has a lot of steps and a lot of planning. What we're going to find out as we talk to Ben, you can see him, if you're watching, you see him shaking his head already. What we're going to find out is that it's not that. It's a really low key, low effort, but high reward, low effort way to meet some neighbors in a really easy way. So I hope as we talk through, listeners, that you'll really consider whether this is something you might want to do in your own community. I think Ben will have some good tips for us as we go. So Ben, why was it important to you to host a block party?
Well, I tend to make a bit of a ruckus sometimes, and I like to play music and that kind of thing. So I figured it would be a good way to sort of build up some rapport with my neighbors before I upset them too much. And that's worked. So neighbors are all good with speakers outside and lights all over the place. But that's just one reason. It's just a blast to meet people and put something together and just walk around and smile at people. And the great thing about a block party is, or one of my favorite things is, you don't have to talk to anybody for that long. Like you talk to somebody for like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, maybe, find out a little bit about them. And then somebody else walks up to say hi, and then they meet each other, and then you leave and you go find somebody else to talk to. That's
a really great point. I hadn't thought about that. So you don't have to have 8 things to say to somebody.
No. Just say hey, and see what they do, what their existence is. And yeah.
Is there like a standard question that works well for you in those situations?
I have a question that I really like to use. It makes people think quite a bit, which has upsides and downsides, but it's, if you had to pick something to compete with a random person off the street in, what would you pick? And if you lost this competition, you died. And it's pretty loaded, but
anytime you use the word died.
Yeah, that's the people tend to go, oh my.
But if you're uncomfortable with the whole the idea that they might die, or putting that in your conversation, you could certainly use the first half of that question, right?
Yeah. And a different version of it that I sometimes use is, what's something you're proud of but don't get to talk about very often?
Man, I love that question.
And that's also gotten some good responses. But
what I like about those questions is, number one, you can say it to everybody. You could use the same question over again. Nobody be upset.
Nope.
because everybody has a unique answer. Number two, you really get to learn something about the person in a kind of a fun way, a unique way. So good question. I appreciate that. Those would be applicable, by the way, even if you're not having a block party. You could use that in any conversation you want to.
I use them all the time. Pretty much everybody I meet.
There you go. Yeah, you and I even had that conversation the other night.
Yep.
So what steps, let's start kind of at the beginning, or maybe even before the beginning. What steps went into the planning process, the preparation process, or in other words, talk about the things you did to get ready for your block party?
So I'll preface this with, a lot of block parties are like these big things where they have like food trucks and bounce houses and all this
Right.
stuff. And like that's great, and you can totally do that if you want, but I would urge people to, if you're going to do this for the first time, don't try to do all that. Just do something simple, and everybody will still love it, and everybody will have a great time. But
Right, because the goal is to meet your neighbors, not necessarily to throw the
Yeah.
most awesome party.
yeah, the planning process really was, I met a couple neighbors. I, just walked around when I moved in and knocked on some doors and said, hey, brought them some brownies, I think. And I found one neighbor who seemed like she would be willing to embark on this planning process with me. She's more of the artistic type, and I'm much more of a like planner and logical. I don't know. I'm not the art kind of person, but she volunteered to design the flyers and do the sort of artsy side of it. And then I headed up sort of the planning and talking to the city. And that sounds scary. It's not at all. There's like one lady there, and I'm sure she's been working there for 20 years. God bless her. And yeah, you just have to go onto this website, at least for Indianapolis.
Probably similar for other areas.
Yeah. And there's just a form you fill out for
So back up a
Indianapolis.
step. What were you talking to the city about?
Well, so the first time I wanted to make sure I had all my, I's dotted and T's crossed. So I really had a lot of questions for them, and what I learned, because like I scrolled through the page, and it's the same, like if you're gonna like close down half the city for some like mega party, you fill out
If
the
you're
same
throwing
form.
the Super Bowl party
Yeah,
or your little street event, it's the same thing.
yeah, you're filling out the same form. So some of the questions on there are like scary sounding or like intimidating, but
How many pyrotechnics will you have?
Say that again.
Questions like how many pyrotechnics will you have?
Yeah. That's exactly the kind of question that's on there. And turns out for like little block parties, they just really don't care that much. You fill out the form, and as long as everything I say is for Indianapolis, but if it's less than 250 people that you expect, which I mean, that's a lot of people. If you can get that many people, that's pretty impressive. But less than 250 people and nothing crazy going on, then it's really dead simple. You just tell them, hey, I'm gonna close down this segment of this street for this long on this day. Here's how I'm gonna clean it up. You write up like a few sentences of we'll
Which is
clean it up
basically
when we're done.
You're going to throw the trash away.
Yep. And then that's pretty much it. And then a week or two later, they get back to you. And yeah.
So the biggest part of dealing with the city is about the street closure.
Yes.
And so, for example, if you live on a cul-de-sac, or you don't feel like, if you have a large yard, if you don't need to close the street, you probably don't even have to deal with the city.
Oh yeah, you can take this from maybe 10 or 15 hours of planning down to like a couple. If you do it in your yard. But there's something fun and like a fun aesthetic about closing the street, I think.
It gives it a gravitas for sure.
Yeah, making cars turn around. And
so what else went into the preparation process for you?
So another part of it was identifying which last names should bring which foods. And you could like try to bring all the food yourself or cater it. But I think that's not a good idea, because a lot of the part of this is not even about the party itself, it's about the planning process. And like the people that I met while planning it are now some of my closest friends. I have, my closest neighbors.
Mhm.
And, just the other day I went to a Taco Tuesday with one of them that I was invited to, and just, just getting to know people.
And I would say too, there's something neighborly, even valuable about, well, we call it a pitch in, right? About pitching in,
Yes.
about contributing something. We had this experience, found this out we used to host a block party at my previous congregation every year. And we found that people were a lot more invested, a lot more excited when they could contribute something, because then it feels a lot more like neighbors, right?
Yeah.
You give me, but I give you something as well, right? It balances the relationship dynamic.
Yep.
or the dynamic.
And people feel like they've made a contribution, and they feel
Exactly.
like, useful, I guess.
Yep.
But the same goes for planning, like even if it's a small task, like, oh, let's see, like, I don't know, contact the liquor store to get a keg or something like that, right? Like something small that would really only take like half an hour.
Mhm.
It still gets somebody involved and makes them like feel like they've been a part of it.
And that's actually probably great, because nobody wants a huge job to do.
Yeah, yeah. So small like delegation, and like you could do everything. You could plan the whole thing on your own and it wouldn't be that hard, most likely, but getting other people to help is really the fun in it, is
Yeah.
what I've come to learn. But
Good thought. Did you already know everybody that you invited?
no, not at all. I knew a couple people, like the close neighbors, like, on either side of me and across the street that I visited like when I moved in. But besides that, I didn't know anybody. Um, and the process of that, and like how do you invite people that you don't know? We made flyers and just printed out a whole bunch of them, walked up and down the street and just handed them out to people, or stick them in their door or something like that. And trying to do like a, hey, I'm here from up the street, when they just have the Ring doorbell answer is a little interesting.
So part of this requires being willing to be a little bit awkward,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
To
But
talk to
that's
a video
that's
doorbell.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always fine. It feels a little weird once or twice, but
Mhm.
it comes out okay.
Yeah. And the people that did answer the door, like everybody said that, like, oh man, I've lived here for like 20 years and we've never done anything like this. This is amazing, get to meet people. And I think there was one couple that I met that said they had lived here for a year and they didn't know a single neighbor.
Hmm.
So like after you get a couple of like thumbs ups from people, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. So what was the reaction of most people? Were they receptive to this?
Yeah, everybody that I talked to was very receptive in differing levels. Uh, some people were super excited and others were, oh, that's cool, I'll try to make it.
Yeah.
But I'll take either. So
Right. I think that one concern many of us have is people are going to be put off, or I don't want to, make people uncomfortable or interrupt them or get, what I've always found is exactly what you said. Most people are really receptive, even if they can't make it or they're not quite sure. They're really excited by the idea of being invited.
yeah, yeah. Thinking of it, I did have one person that saw somebody standing there with flyers and just immediately closed the door and said, "I'm not interested." Till they'd had one too many folks come to their door, but that's
Sure.
okay.
Yep.
That's one out of maybe 100 doors. So
You went to 100 doors.
I'd say around there, yeah.
Good for you.
Probably not far off.
I just want to put in here. You don't have to invite 100 100.
Oh, no. I think the first time it was maybe like 50 folks, and then not quite as many people as I had hoped showed up. So we expanded it the second year, but in retrospect, I'm glad we kept it small and manageable. There were a lot of like learning things that happened
Sure.
during the course.
And that would be my encouragement too, is if this is the first time that you're going to try this, start small.
Yeah, don't go crazy.
Maybe, if 10 to 15 people is a great first start.
Yeah.
For exactly what you're saying. You can keep it manageable. You know you can talk to everybody, and you can find some people who will help you out the next time that way. So certainly don't get intimidated by the number of people, right? Do whatever's comfortable for you and stop there. It's totally fine. Overall, how much time would you say you put into this process, start to finish?
I think the first time I did it, I put too much effort into it, more than was necessary. At least the city and the permit part. And I'd say I spent maybe 20 hours, but the second go around, realized that all I needed to do was like copy and paste this paragraph, and dump it in there and submit this form, and maybe 10 to 15 hours. And of course, most of that is like hanging out with a neighbor, and it's not just
Well,
boring.
it's not 10 to 15 hours in staring at your computer screen. It's 10 to 15 hours.
No, and this is over the course of like a couple months, so
Sure.
like an hour here and there, really.
So pretty manageable on the nights and the weekends and those sorts of things.
Yeah, doesn't take much time. 10 to 15 might even be an exaggeration. I think a few of those hours is probably handing out flyers. That might be one of the most time intensive parts, but
Sure.
even at that, it's just an evening that you need to set aside. So
And if you have good relationships with your neighbors, if you know some phone numbers, you could even cut some of that time down by sending some texts and things instead.
oh, absolutely. Or if you have some kind of like a Facebook group or something. I mean,
Facebook or next door.
yep, absolutely.
So it wouldn't have to be all legwork, although this is a nice time of year to be out walking in the neighborhood anyway.
Yep.
What kinds of activities or programming, so to speak, did you offer?
So the first time we invited the fire department, which was a really easy process. They have a form on their website, and you just fill it out and say, hope you can make it. And they brought a fire truck for the kids. There were only a couple kids there, but I acted like a kid, and they brought little like firefighter hats and some donuts for us even. And that was a lot of fun. Get to, have the kids turn on the siren and things like that. A few of the neighbors who were kind of like walking in as the fire truck was coming thought that something had gone horribly wrong. And no, in fact, they were just there to hang out. So
Yeah.
Second block party though, this past one, I don't think we really had any activities. People are like right next to their homes, so if they're like, I want to play cornhole, I have cornhole, then they can just bring it. And you don't have to plan out all this stuff. I don't think you can if you want to, but
So you don't have to be the party planner and haul all the stuff out of your own garage and get it all set up and clean it up later. I love what you said. If they want to do it, they can bring it.
Yeah. And like, just think about the things that typical people have, and like tables. Like in retrospect, I probably should have asked, tried to figure out where I was going to get tables from. But I just like had one table that my parents lent me, and then other people just kind of brought theirs. They had their food and they brought it, and they were like, there's not enough table space, I'll go grab mine.
Yeah. So the main thing is provide an opportunity for people to gather.
Yeah.
You don't have to have every detail nailed down. You're not hosting them in your home, so you don't have to have it nailed down.
And you don't have to clean your house too, which is great.
There you go.
At least for me.
I hadn't even thought about that, but that's a win-win.
Yeah.
Two more quick questions for you, and my battery is very close to being dead, so that's why I said quick.
All right.
Interpret this one any way you want. What are some success stories that you could tell?
I think one of my favorite things that I heard from this past one, I had this friend from my old job, and we went to school together. And then we both like live near here, but I haven't talked to her that much. But I invited her, and then I invited my kickball team that I'm on. And my friend from school and somebody from my kickball team like got to know each other, and now they're like real good friends, and they got dinner the other night, I heard. And I think it's cool to like have your friends meet each other and develop their own relationships. I find that really rewarding.
Very cool.
Look, being the, I don't know, trigger for it.
Matchmaker is too weird a word, but
Yeah, I don't know if matchmakers the
something along those lines.
maybe for some people, I don't know.
We'll see where it goes.
You mesh enough people together, and some
Yeah.
positive relationships are bound to come out of it.
Last question: what would you say to someone who's on the fence about hosting a party like this, who's listening to this and says, maybe I could do it, I'm not quite sure? What would you say?
Don't think too hard. Just do it one day at a time. Bring out a speaker and a table, and make sure you get barricades from the city. I learned that the hard way. You gotta, go and talk to these people and drive down to the Department of Public Works and do that. But really, it's not as hard as it sounds or as intimidating, and you don't have to be like the person of the neighborhood. Like if you have an HOA, probably be good to like reach out to them and coordinate somehow. But
They can help with it,
yeah, I don't have an HOA or anything like that, so I just did it. And what are people gonna say? The city gave you a permit, so I mean, yeah.
Well said. And I want to say one more thing. I'm going to speak for you, because when we talked about this earlier, you mentioned that the second time around you invited some disciples,
Mhm.
which I thought was cool. I like it for two reasons. So again, listeners, this is kind of what we're after. This is a great way to meet neighbors. I hope you're hearing that it's not challenging, it's not difficult, it's not burdensome. It can be as much or as little as you put into it, right? If you want to have a great big party, have a great big party. But if you just want some neighbors gathered in the cul-de-sac and they chip in a little bit as they want to, that can work too. Having a few other disciples there is a cool thing. You don't want to make it all full of your church people, but having two or three others there can increases the chances that your neighbors are getting to know someone who is a Jesus follower. So as we think about building relationships with our neighbors, in order that down the line they might lead to faith conversations, having a few other trusted disciples there kind of takes some of that burden off of you. It increases the chances that they're going to connect with somebody. It also gives you somebody that you can turn to, especially if you plan this together and you maybe connect with another family to say, hey, we're going to throw a block party to get to know some neighbors. Gives you somebody in that moment, right, that you can turn to and say, would you mind grabbing some ice? It's your person at the event who knows what this is about and knows why you're doing it and can be your support that way. So certainly would recommend, again, you don't have to do this on your own. Pair up with somebody, invite somebody from your small group or a connection you have, and let them know what you're doing and would they do it with you. All right, Ben, any final thoughts as we wrap up?
No, I think that's pretty much it. It's a blast. Yep, you should do it if you're thinking about it.
All right. And if you are thinking about it, I want to say two things to you. The first is I've done the paperwork process as well. I know a little bit about it. I'm willing to walk along beside you. Shoot me an email. You guys know how to reach me. Give me a call, whatever. If you're thinking about this and you want either just to think about it or some help walking through the process, I will do that with you. The second thing I want to let you know about, Cornerstone has seed money for this. We didn't talk about how much it costs, but we really believe in this as an outreach opportunity, as a way to connect with neighbors. And so we're going to put some funds behind it. This does not have to be an out-of-pocket thing for you. We will help you, get some of that taken care of. So again, reach out to me if that's of interest to you. Would love to talk with anyone who's interested. That being said, thanks a lot, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe you'll have some more. You can come on and talk about all the other things you've learned.
Yep.
In the meantime, have a great week, everyone. We will see you again soon.
Thanks for joining us for the Pack the House Show. For more content like this, or to connect with us, visit our website, cornerstonelutheran.church.